Joining us today on Geaux Acadiana is Bel Edwards, candidate for governor here in Louisiana. Good to have you with us as we get closer to that runoff in November. And I guess the first thing we should ask you is, what steps would you take to cut that $1.6 billion budget deficit we're facing?
Well, look, thank you. It's a great opportunity for me to be with you as well. 1.6 billion. Look, that was the number from last year. We're already $420 million short in the current fiscal year, and the forecast for the year that starts July the 1st of 2016 is over $1 billion now. Tremendous challenges because it comes after 7 straight years of revenue shortfall, and so the low-hanging fruit has already been picked. But we're gonna make sure that we produce as much savings as possible in the way we deliver services from the state. We're going to look for efficiencies and savings. We're going to also expand more flexibility when it comes to allocating cuts through a broader area of the budget instead of focusing them on higher education and health care. We're going to accept our federal dollars back to help us meet our obligations to our people in a way that help us save money as well, principally through the expansion of health care coverage for working families. But primarily the way we're going to address the shortfall, and we're never going to try to solve for the entire amount. There's always going to be budget cuts as well. But we're going to look at tax expenditures, tax giveaways, these credits and rebates and that are costing the state too much money and not producing enough return on investment. We're going to reduce that spending through the tax code and then reallocate the savings to higher priority items like health care and higher education. And then, like I said earlier, there's still going to be cuts on top of that. But there is a smart way to move forward. I'm committed to doing that, using my leadership ability to bring people to the table, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, to pursue the common interest in order to make this happen. We cannot, however, cut higher education further in terms of state general fund support. It isn't good for ULL. It isn't good for LSU. It isn't good for anybody. And so it's going to be my biggest priority to address these shortfalls in a way that does not cut higher education yet again.
Bel Edwards is our guest today, and we sent him the same questions we sent to Senator David Vitter. So they're answering the same questions, and I think it's a little bit fairer than the debates have been on television.
Yeah.
Bel, what are your thoughts on charter schools?
Well, over my years in the legislature, I've been on the Education Committee all 8. And my support for charter schools depends upon whether you're talking about a for-profit charter or a traditional charter. I am not a fan of the for-profit charter model because it seems to drive decision-making that sometimes is not in the best interest of the kids and their education, but is to deliver a profit to the people running the school. For example, we have for-profit charter operators in Louisiana who don't offer food service at their schools. They don't offer transportation to their schools, and yet charter schools are designed to be laboratories, to experiment with different strategies of delivering education to at-risk children to find out what works, and then you export successful strategies to traditional public schools. But that doesn't work if the charter school isn't enrolling its fair share of at-risk students. And if you're not feeding the students at school, and you're not offering transportation, and you're not building the schools in the communities that you're trying to serve, then you're not going to get your share of at-risk students. And so I'm not a fan of the for-profit model. But generally speaking, charter schools that operate out of the traditional model, I am supportive. Mm-hmm. And it's all a function of being fair and making sure that we have accountability. So I believe in local control over education. If you've got a school district that is performing well under our accountability system, let's say you've got a school district that is graded an A or a B, and that school system decides, that school board decides that it doesn't want a charter school, then I believe that the folks in Baton Rouge at the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education should not be able to override that decision and force that charter school in that district. And I believe we should allow local control so that local taxpayers who are voting taxes on themselves to support public education and also voting into office school board members can then hold those school board members accountable for how tax dollars are being spent, how children are being educated. If decision-making is going to be taken into the hands of the folks in Baton Rouge, then that is not possible. So I believe in local control over education matters, including whether a new charter school is created in a district that has an A or B letter grade under our accountability system. For poor-performing districts, if they refuse to have a charter school, then I believe that decision probably ought to be reviewed and subject to overturn by the folks at the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Moving on to our next subject, what do you think about Planned Parenthood? Would you cut funding to Planned Parenthood, especially in light of the recent videos that have surfaced?
Look, I do not support taxpayer funding for abortion, period. Never have, never will. Secondly, my position on the issue of abortion is very clear, and it's informed by my Catholic Christian faith. Over 8 years, I have a 100% voting record that is pro-life, as measured by the Louisiana Right to Life. In my personal life, I will tell you that my wife and I have been challenged with adversity on this issue, and our personal decisions are 100% consistent with that faith. And my daughter Samantha is a living testament to my commitment and my wife's on this particular issue. If Planned Parenthood violated the law, then they should be defunded. It's just that simple.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've received many endorsements, just like many candidates have, before the primary election. Do you expect to receive endorsements from the unsuccessful gubernatorial candidates, even though they're from the other party?
I'm not going to say that I expect to receive them, but I would certainly welcome them. It would be a good development in my campaign. But whether I get endorsed by Jay Darden or Scott Angel, I am reaching out to their voters regardless, because they have to make a decision for whom to vote in the runoff, and their preferred candidate is not going to be there. And so they're going to have to choose between myself and Senator Vitter. And I am working very hard to make sure that they are comfortable with my candidacy and that I am their candidate of choice. And so irrespective of whether I get an endorsement from them, I certainly am reaching out to their voters and trying to bring them on board so that we can move our state forward and turn the page on the general error.
Our guest today is John Bel Edwards, candidate for governor here in Louisiana, and this conversation is being pre-recorded, therefore we can't take any phone calls, but we've got one more question. It's understood negative ads work, and they're disliked by voters, of course. Do you think negative campaign ads work by increasing voter apathy, thus reducing voters to committed members of either party?
Look, I don't think there is any doubt that the deluge of negative ads is responsible for driving down voter participation in the election that we had this past Saturday. I mean, it is embarrassing to have such a low percentage of voters actually show up to vote, but it's not the voters' fault. I mean, the political discourse is so bad, and the deluge of negative ads on TV is so strong and overpowering that I think people say, well, you know what, it doesn't matter for whom I vote. They're all bad people. But the negative ads, in many cases, and I will tell you Senator Vitter is responsible for them, the negative ads against Jay Darden and Scott Angel and against myself were just over the top. I mean, just outrageous. Jay didn't deserve it. Scott didn't deserve it. And I certainly don't deserve what I got during the primary or what they're doing to me now. They're false, they're misleading, and they're just outrageous. And we wonder why people don't want to go vote. You know, so yes, I do think they have an impact on the electorate. They're designed to have an impact on the electorate. Unfortunately, the biggest part of the impact is people just don't vote at all.
John Bel, it's been great to have you on today, and we hope to talk to you again some more between now and the runoff and maybe after the election as well.